The rail pressure sensor is designed to convert fuel rail pressure values into voltage signals for the engine control unit. The ECM supplies a 5-volt reference and low reference to the sensor. Varying signal voltages are returned to the ECM based on fuel pressure within the rail. When the fuel pressure is high, the signal voltage is high. When the fuel pressure is low, so the signal voltage is also low. The diagnostics for these codes will run only when the engine is running and the battery level is greater than 11 volts. A P0192 will be recorded if the sensor signal voltage is lower than a predetermined value. This may be caused by a short to ground in the high reference circuit, a short to ground or excess resistance in a pull-up signal circuit. Having a battery maintainer connected during any electrical checks will guarantee stable voltage readings. Disconnect the harness connector at the fuel rail pressure sensor and attach a meter set on volts between battery negative and the high reference terminal. Turn the ignition on and record the voltage. The expected value would be between 4.8 and 5.2 volts. 0 volts would indicate a short to ground or open in the circuit. To confirm or rule out a short to ground, move the meter lead to battery positive and watch the display. Any meter reading seen now will confirm a short to ground. Turn the ignition off and disconnect the ECM. Turn the ignition on and watch the display. If the meter now reads 0, there is a short to ground in the ECM or another circuit from the ECM. To isolate, perform a continuity test between the high reference terminal at the fuel rail pressure sensor harness connector and all other ECM terminals. If continuity is not found in any circuit, the fault will be a short to ground in the ECM. If the meter displayed any continuity, the short is in that circuit. If, when the ECM was initially disconnected, the meter display was still high, the short to ground is in the harness between the two connectors. With the ignition off, disconnect the fuel rail pressure sensor harness connector. Set the meter on volts and connect between battery negative and the signal terminal in the harness connector. You should see 5 volts displayed with the ignition on. A significantly lower reading than 5 volts is evidence of a circuit resistance fault. Move 1 meter lead to the ECM connector and back probe the signal terminal while watching the display. If the correct voltage is now shown, the excess resistance is between the two connectors. If the meter still displays a lower than expected value, disconnect the ECM and inspect the signal terminal in the harness connector and ECM for corrosion and terminal tension. If no fault can be found, the excess resistance is internal to the ECM. A short to ground in a pull-up signal circuit will set DTC P0192. With the ignition on, the fuel rail pressure sensor disconnected, and the meter connected between battery negative and the signal terminal, 0 volts displayed may indicate a short to ground. To confirm this, move the meter lead from battery negative to battery positive while monitoring the display. If there is any meter reading now, a short to ground has been confirmed. Turn the ignition off and disconnect the ECM. If the meter reads 0 volts, then the short is in the ECM or a circuit from the ECM. To isolate between the two, perform a continuity test between the fuel rail pressure sensor harness connector signal terminal and all other terminals in the ECM connector. If this test fails to produce a result, the short is in the ECM. If the meter reading did not change when the ECM was initially disconnected, then the short to ground is in the harness between the two connectors. If the high reference and signal circuit test OK, the DTC can only have been caused by the sensor. Continuous training will guarantee effective diagnosis will be reached in minimal time. Thanks for watching.